Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and this is the Leatherman Signal. It's been around for a few years, and I pretty much dismissed it when it first came out. Thought it was awfully gimmicky. Its main claims to fame were it had a little fire rod here and a knife sharpener here, and then a handful of the standard Leatherman tools, including what they call a hammer there, carabiner to clip it to things, you know, a couple of nut drivers right there, and then the standard saw, blade, bit holder or bit driver, can opener, and all. Well, I'm not going to get into too much how to use it. I'm going to get into some observations. I still think it's kind of a dumb tool, and the reason is it has some features that really need both practice, and the ones provided I can see possibly causing more problems. First of all, the fire starter here, this little ferricium rod, this is definitely on the tiny side, like the emergency side. And in order to use one of these, it takes a little bit of skill, even with a good one. What I'd recommend, if you're serious, go buy yourself a big old honking one like this. I have a bunch of these. They work great. Wrap duct tape around them. Usually have to grind down the coating that they put on them. And you can get them drilled so you can actually, you know, throw a lanyard on. But these are not going to break easily. And a lot of people push way too hard on these things because they think that's how they're going to get the fire. And generally they're using either a bad striker or possibly it's just not that high quality. So what seems to be the recommendation on the Signal, at least from, you know, when I started to kind of do a little work figuring out what people thought of this thing, is they were recommending using the back of the saw, and I have no idea why. First of all, it's not a 90-degree edge. There's nothing sharp about it. Mine appears to be rounded. There's nothing there that, you know, is easily going to scrape that, so people probably see it and nothing's happening, and then they push really hard and then they snap this thing in half, you know, when now they're in twice as much trouble. You know what you should use? Use this blade. The blade is really sharp. Right there. People probably say, oh, it'll dull the knife. Well, yeah, after you freeze to death. I mean, seriously, do you want to start the fire or not? The knife is to be used. If this was a rock, yeah, then I would say you're probably going to dull the knife and maybe use the awl, which ironically, if you pop that awl out of here, fits in with this hammer thing. So you can actually have that out. But the blade, the contour of it is really on the wrong side. But you might be able to get something going here. This is really hard to use. The other thing, let's talk about that hammer. People are saying that they are actually trying to pound in tent stakes. That's sort of what they're using it for. Well, you know, here's a tent stake. Here's North Face T75, T6, you know, aluminum stake. I've used stuff like this. If you actually want a really good tent stake, get these MSR ones. They're not cheap, but they are way better. You know, I don't know what you're doing with your tent stakes. Most of the time people have stuff like this. If you need these, you're already in trouble. And the reason is these just pull right back out or bend. In fact, I've got one of these North Face. Well, this one I think might be bent. Is that the bent one? And they're very easy to bend. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Nice bow shape. I think that's a North Face too. Pound it in. You know, if you want to pound in tent stakes, get a tent stake hammer like this thing. That's what it's for. But most of the time I use other stuff. Well, I use logs and rocks, you know, or sand anchors or things like that. I have tons of tent stakes, all kinds of them. I have titanium ones. But in reality, if that's what you need to pound in a tent stake, ouch, you're already, to me, at a disadvantage. They included this carabiner. People were hooking it on things. That was great, except then it would fall open, actually this way. So what did they do? They engineered a clip that slides down right there, so now it doesn't fall open. Interesting. And if you pop that open, you can actually close it. So they thought of that. Interesting, I guess, because somebody, if it didn't do that, people would force it and then they'd break that thing off. So, you know, to me, this is like a good version 1. I think it should have a massive fire starter in it if that's its thing. Going back to that, they should also give you a whole bunch of these, and they should design this so you can slide them in. And the reason is that that will allow you to practice. I mean, you've got a few shots on this. You might break it. People aren't going to use it when then it's a survival situation or an emergency, or, you know, they'd really like to use it, and in fact, they're not going to be any good at it. They're probably going to snap it in half. As far as this knife sharpener goes, it actually isn't the worst thing if you were trying to hold it. You know, it vibrates a little funny, but if you can get around that, you could use it that way, you know, for an axe or something. But if you try to use it as a knife sharpener, because of the size and the shape, and it's a diamond sharpener, there's a good chance you might end up cutting off more goodness off the blade than helping. In other words, you're going to make things worse. So it's kind of, I can see that it's neat, you know, bragging rights at the mall or something, but in reality, to me, there are way better ways you could have done that. But that's their choice. If we go to the blade on this thing, actually I might as well do the pliers, good solid pliers. I'm glad they have replaceable jaws. I have no problem with them, dialed in. Problem is you're paying, you know, $40 more than a Leatherman Wave, which is already an outstanding tool. So let's take a look at the knife. The knife is actually one of my favorite features on this thing, primarily because of the thickness. If you compare that to the Leatherman Wave knife, you can see, you know, the blade, it's a little crude as far as the finish work on it, but it is definitely thicker, and that's important. It is still 440 stainless, or 440 HC they call it. That was a really cool steel back in the middle of World War II when it started to be used. The H or HC is for high carbon, just means it's got about 1 to touch over 1% carbon in it. It is a stainless steel, that's always good, simply because if used regular non-stainless high carbon steel, it definitely rust, and these things do get wet. This is kind of interesting. You see that rainbow pattern in there? I have no idea why that's there. That looks like a heat treatment. Kind of interesting, and it's even crazier on the saw side. Way down in there, if I can get that. It's like a, see that? It looks to me like one of the heating of titanium, but it's not. I like it. It's cool. I have no idea why. But anyway, so who is this being marketed to? It's like a, given all of the colors, given that REI really promotes the heck out of it, it's definitely a outdoor survival multi-tool. I think these are significantly misleading as far as what they're capable of, and that you generally have to have skill to use both of these tools effectively. This one to actually get it to work and to not break it, and this one to do more good than damage to your blade. So kind of interesting there. As far as the saw goes, to me it's way too thin. I do like that Leatherman has these saws, but that is awfully thin. I wouldn't mind a little extra weight and a little extra girth there. And overall fit and finish seems fine. I have heard of complaints where they weren't done quite as well or possibly used. Overall, kind of an interesting tool. Trying to figure out what the benefit of that is, because they obviously engineered that, I believe. Maybe it was an accident. I don't know. Nobody really uses the awl that much, and this one's definitely not very sharp. But kind of an interesting tangent on this thing. Overall, I think it's way too expensive, because these guys here seem to be what, this and this end here seems to be what's driven up the cost. And these right here are not worth much. I mean, there's all kinds of gimmicks here. How about this? Here's a Zippo. This is Zippo's take on a survival tool, and they use some sort of a striker, you know, like a Zippo lighter here, like you're supposed to be able to get this working. Cheese grater to make a little bit of tinder, you know, and then a couple of other features here. Cheesy saw, little knife. It all fits down in here. You can carry it like a pocket knife. I think these are discontinued. I don't know how, I don't know what they're for. I guess Christmas or something for people that don't actually use the stuff. But anyway, overall, the Signal, it's not as bad as I thought. I think it's a good solid multi-tool, but if you're buying it for this stuff, you know, I think really you should think long and hard about why. To me, there's some marketing here. It's kind of like the Benchmade bug out. It was great, and then it wasn't, and now it's great again. And finally what happened is people realized what it was for. It is not for bugging out. It is for everyday carry, being super light, very handy, high quality materials. But you would not want it to be your end-all knife. I would always suggest carrying a real sharpener of some sort and learning how to use it. This thing, it's interesting. I think this is a marketing tool here, not necessarily a multi-tool. But overall, if you can overlook those parts of it, the rest of it does seem fairly solid. It's just on the pricier side. And it does come in colors, and that seems to be the attractiveness. Way better than nothing, but the features of it are not its strengths. I mean, the main features of it, what sets it aside. Go get yourself a mud if you really want a hammer. You know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this thing. I do like that Leatherman is innovating, but I'm kind of disappointed that they are going through a lot of designs so fast instead of just refining them. I don't know what's up with that. This one's discontinued. I mean, even the new one, the Charge. I like that they're using titanium. I like that they're using, this has got S30V steel. I just wish Leatherman, would seriously think about what they're actually telling people here. They're telling them this has potential, as a life-saving, survival tool, but then they don't give you the option to literally practice with it, or to easily replace these consumable parts. Anyway, let me know. And with that, Doc out.